Russell Dixon's life changed forever when his spacecraft malfunctioned and crash-landed on the alien planet Krena, stranding him among a race of gorgeous Amazonian girls. The 35-year-old human astronaut and engineer stumbled from the smoking wreckage, disoriented and gasping in the oxygen-rich atmosphere. His head swam as he took in the sight before him, a group of towering, muscular humanoid females with blue skin and silver hair, each standing over 7 feet tall. The Krena, as he would later learn they were called, reacted with immediate hostility. Their leader, a 28-year-old female named Solaris, barked orders in an alien tongue. Russell raised his hands in a gesture of peace, desperately trying to explain his situation. The language barrier proved insurmountable, and he found himself seized by powerful blue hands. As the Krena escorted him to a holding facility, Russell's engineer's mind raced to catalog every detail of his surroundings. The architecture was unlike anything he'd seen on Earth, sleek, imposing structures that seemed to defy gravity. Advanced technology was evident everywhere he looked, from the vehicles that silently glided by to the devices the Krena carried. The binary star system that Krena orbited cast an eerie, ever-present light across the landscape. Russell stumbled slightly, his body struggling to adjust to the increased gravity. He estimated it at about 1.2 times Earth's pull, making each step a conscious effort. Throughout their march, Russell's eyes darted from one Krena to another, searching for any sign of male aliens. He found none. The entire population, as far as he could see, consisted solely of these impressive female specimens. Questions about their reproductive process and social structure flooded his mind, but he pushed them aside. Survival came first. Solaris herself conducted Russell's interrogation. Her piercing gaze seemed to strip away his defenses, leaving him feeling exposed and vulnerable. Yet beneath her stern exterior, Russell detected a glimmer of scientific curiosity. She studied his smaller, paler form with evident interest, no doubt noting the stark differences between their species. After a tense exchange, during which Russell struggled to convey peaceful intentions through gestures and rudimentary drawings, Solaris made a decision. Instead of imprisonment or worse, she assigned him to a research facility. Russell understood the implication immediately. He was to be both subject and contributor, his knowledge of human technology extracted for Krena benefit. As the planet's brief, intense night fell, Russell found himself locked in sparse but comfortable quarters. The events of the day whirled through his mind. He was stranded on an alien world, surrounded by a race of towering, technologically advanced women who viewed him with a mixture of suspicion and scientific interest. His spacecraft lay in Krena hands, his equipment confiscated. Earth was beyond his reach. Russell stared out the window at the unfamiliar stars, acutely aware of the precarious nature of his situation. To survive, he would need to carefully navigate the complex dynamics of Krena society. He must prove his worth without revealing too much, cooperate without losing sight of his ultimate goal, finding a way back to Earth. As exhaustion finally overtook him, Russell's last thoughts were of the challenges that lay ahead. In this strange, female-dominated alien world, he was the ultimate outsider, but he was also human, adaptable, resourceful, and determined. Whatever trials Krena had in store, he would face them head-on. His survival and perhaps the future of human-Krena relations depended on it. The first rays of Krena's binary suns pierced through Russell's window, rousing him from a fitful sleep. His muscles ached from the increased gravity, a constant reminder of his alien surroundings. Before he could fully gather his thoughts, the door to his quarters slid open with a soft hiss. 2 Krena guards entered, their towering forms dwarfing Russell as they gestured for him to follow. He complied without protest, knowing resistance would be futile. As they marched through the streets, Russell marveled at the gleaming architecture around him, his engineer's mind cataloging every detail. Their destination loomed ahead, a colossal structure that seemed to scrape the sky itself. The Krena research facility was a marvel of engineering, its sleek lines and shimmering surfaces unlike anything Russell had ever seen on Earth. He felt a mix of awe and trepidation as they approached the entrance. Inside, Russell was brought face to face with Dr. Zara, the lead Krena scientist. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her piercing gaze seemed to look right through him. "Welcome, human," she said, her voice carrying a hint of an accent Russell couldn't quite place. "I am Dr. Zara. You will assist me in my research." Over the next few hours, Russell found himself subjected to a battery of tests. Dr. Zara's team measured his strength, endurance, and cognitive abilities with an array of advanced equipment. Russell couldn't help but feel like a lab specimen, but he reminded himself that cooperation was key to his survival. As Dr. Zara was calibrating a device to measure his neural activity, Russell noticed a nearby console emitting an odd sequence of beeps. His engineering instincts kicked in, and he quickly identified the problem. "Excuse me," he said, gesturing towards the machine. "I think I can help with that." Dr. Zara's eyes narrowed, but she nodded her assent. Russell approached the console, his fingers dancing over the unfamiliar controls. Within minutes, he had diagnosed and repaired the malfunctioning component. The machine hummed back to life, its displays glowing with renewed vigor. A murmur of surprise rippled through the Krena scientists. Dr. Zara's expression softened slightly, a hint of respect creeping into her voice. "Impressive, human. Perhaps you have more to offer than we initially thought." Unbeknownst to Russell, Solaris had been observing the entire interaction from a hidden viewing room. She turned to her advisors, a thoughtful expression on her face. "This human's skills could be valuable. Integrate him into the infrastructure project. Let's see what else he can do." Over the next few weeks, Russell found himself working alongside Krena engineers on a massive undertaking to upgrade the city's power grid. The work was challenging, pushing the limits of his knowledge and adaptability. Yet he thrived on the challenge, earning grudging respect from his Krena counterparts. As he worked, Russell's keen mind absorbed every detail about Krena technology and society. He noticed the absence of children or younger Krena, a fact that puzzled him deeply. It wasn't until a late-night conversation with Dr. Zara that he learned the truth. "Our species faces extinction," Dr. Zara confided, her usual composure cracking slightly. "A genetic mutation has made viable births increasingly rare. We are a dying race, Russell." The revelation stunned him. Suddenly, the Krenem's interest in his physiology took on new significance. He realized that in their eyes, he might represent more than just an alien curiosity. He could be the key to their survival. As days turned to weeks, Russell fell into a routine. Each morning, he pushed his body to its limits, exercising to maintain his strength in the higher gravity. His workouts drew curious onlookers, and soon he found himself exchanging fitness techniques with some of the Krenem. His relationship with Dr. Zara evolved as well. What had started as a clinical researcher-subject dynamic gradually softened into something resembling friendship. She became his staunchest advocate among the Krenem leadership, arguing for his continued freedom and integration. However, not everyone viewed Russell's growing influence favorably. Commander Lyra, a stern military leader with a deep distrust of outsiders, watched his progress with mounting concern. She saw in Russell a potential threat to Krenem security and lobbied for stricter controls on his activities. The tension came to a head when Russell, while working on the infrastructure project, accidentally accessed restricted data about Krenem defense systems. He immediately reported the breach, but the damage was done. Commander Lyra seized upon the incident, calling for Russell's immediate confinement. Solaris found herself at a crossroads. Russell's value to their society was clear, but so too were the security risks he posed. As she weighed her options, Russell knew he had to act quickly to secure his position. Drawing upon everything he had learned about Krenem biology and technology, Russell formulated a daring proposal. He requested an audience with Solaris, Dr. Zara, and the Krenem leadership to present his idea, a collaborative project combining human and Krenem bioengineering techniques to create a new method of artificial reproduction. The proposal sent shockwaves through the Krenem leadership. Dr. Zara immediately threw her support behind the idea, seeing in it a glimmer of hope for her people's future. Commander Lyra, however, vehemently opposed any further cooperation with the human. As the debate raged, Russell stood at its center, acutely aware that his fate, and potentially that of both species, hung in the balance. Solaris listened to both sides, her expression unreadable. The future of human-Krenem relations would be decided by her next words. Solaris's gaze swept over the assembled Krena leadership, her expression unreadable as she weighed the gravity of Russell's proposal. The chamber fell silent, all eyes fixed on their leader as she prepared to deliver her verdict. "We stand at a crossroads," Solaris began, her voice carrying the weight of her decision. "Our species faces extinction, and we must consider all options for our survival. Russell's proposal, while unorthodox, offers a glimmer of hope we cannot ignore. I hereby approve the collaborative project between human and Krena bioengineering." A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. Dr. Zara's face lit up with excitement, while Commander Lyra's features darkened with barely suppressed rage. Russell exhaled slowly, relief washing over him as he realized the potential impact of this moment. However, the tension in the room was palpable. Commander Lyra stood abruptly, her towering form casting a shadow across the chamber. "This is an outrage," she thundered. "We cannot allow our genetic purity to be compromised by this alien." Solaris raised a hand, silencing the commander. "The decision has been made, Lyra. We will proceed with caution, but we will proceed." As the meeting adjourned, Russell caught sight of Lyra's face contorted with fury. He felt a chill run down his spine, sensing that this was just the beginning. Over the next few days, Russell threw himself into his work, collaborating closely with Dr. Zara and her team. They made rapid progress, combining human and Krena knowledge in ways neither species had considered before. Russell found himself energized by the challenge, his mind racing with possibilities. But as they worked, an undercurrent of unease spread through the city. Whispers of dissent grew louder, fueled by Lyra's supporters who saw the humans' influence as a threat to their way of life. 5 days after Solaris's decision, the world erupted into chaos. Russell was jolted awake by the sound of explosions and the wail of alarms. He rushed to the window, his heart pounding as he saw columns of smoke rising from several locations across the city. A frantic knocking at his door made him jump. He opened it to find a young Krena guard, her face pale with fear. "You must come with me," she urged. "Commander Lyra has staged a coup. She's declared martial law and ordered your execution." Russell's mind reeled as he grabbed his essentials. "What about Solaris? Dr. Zara?" "Imprisoned," the guard replied, ushering him down the corridor. "We don't have much time." They raced through the building, alarms blaring around them. As they reached the lower levels, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from an adjacent hallway. The guard pushed Russell into a storage closet, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's a maintenance tunnel that leads out of the city. Follow it to the eastern wilderness. May fortune favor you, human." Before Russell could thank her, she was gone. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead, and plunged into the darkness of the tunnel. The journey through the maintenance tunnel was a harrowing one. Russell's muscles screamed in protest as he navigated the narrow passageway, the increased gravity of Krena making every movement a challenge. The distant sounds of conflict above drove him forward, his mind racing with plans and possibilities. After what felt like hours, Russell emerged on the outskirts of the city. The binary suns were just beginning to rise, casting an eerie glow across the alien landscape. He took a moment to orient himself, then set off towards the east, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what he was leaving behind. The Krena wilderness was unlike anything Russell had ever encountered. Dense forests of bioluminescent plants gave way to vast, shifting deserts. The increased gravity made every step a conscious effort, and the oxygen-rich atmosphere left him lightheaded and gasping. As he trudged through a particularly dense patch of forest, a rustle in the underbrush made him freeze. Russell held his breath, eyes scanning the area. Suddenly, a figure burst from the foliage, knocking him to the ground. Russell found himself staring up at a young Krena female, her silver hair wild and unkempt. She held a crude spear to his throat, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Who are you?" she demanded, her accent thicker than the Krena he had grown accustomed to in the city. "What are you doing in my territory?" Russell raised his hand slowly, his mind racing. "My name is Russell Dixon. I'm not from around here. I'm seeking refuge from Commander Lyra's forces." The young Krena's eyes narrowed, but she lowered her spear slightly. "Lyra? The military commander?" She studied Russell more closely, taking in his alien features. "You're the human they've been talking about in the city." Russell nodded cautiously. "And you are?" "Nixara," she replied, finally stepping back and allowing Russell to sit up. "I was exiled from the city due to a genetic quirk. I'm one of the few Krenim who can still bear children naturally." Russell's eyes widened at this revelation. "Nixara, I think we might be able to help each other. I'm trying to find a way to rescue Solaris and Dr. Zara. If you help me, I promise to do everything in my power to help you reintegrate into Krenim society." Nixara considered his words, her expression guarded. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, human. I will help you. But know this, if you betray me, you will not survive long in this wilderness." As they began to plan their next move, Russell couldn't help but feel a mix of hope and trepidation. He was an engineer thrust into a world of political intrigue and survival, with the fate of two species potentially resting on his shoulders. As the binary suns climbed higher in the alien sky, Russell knew that the real challenges were only just beginning. As the binary suns climbed higher in the alien sky, Russell knew that the real challenges were only just starting. The plan to rescue Solaris and Dr. Zara took shape quickly. Nixara's intimate knowledge of the city's hidden pathways proved invaluable as they infiltrated the heavily guarded compound where the leaders were held. Russell's heart pounded as they crept through shadowy corridors, the distant sounds of conflict echoing through the structure. They found Solaris and Dr. Zara in a high-security cell, both looking haggard but unbroken. As Russell worked to bypass the locking mechanism, Nixara kept watch, her makeshift spear at the ready. "Russell?" Dr. Zara's eyes widened in disbelief as the cell door slid open. "How did you—" "No time to explain," Russell interrupted, helping her to her feet. "We need to move now." The escape was chaotic. Alarms blared as they raced through the compound, Lyra's forces hot on their heels. Russell's mind worked overtime, combining his knowledge of human tactics with Krenim technology. He jury-rigged a series of improvised devices, using them to create distractions and obstacles for their pursuers. As they neared the compound's exit, a squad of Lyra's loyalists cut off their escape. Russell's muscles screamed under the strain of Krenima's gravity as he dove for cover, pulling Dr. Zara with him. Nixara and Solaris took position behind a nearby pillar, the young outcast protecting her leader with fierce commitment. The firefight was intense, energy weapons scorching the air around them. Russell's human physiology, honed by weeks of training in high gravity, gave him an edge in speed and reflexes. He moved from cover to cover, drawing fire and creating openings for his companions. In a lull between volleys, Russell caught Solaris's eye. The Krenim leader nodded, understanding passing between them. As Russell provided covering fire, Solaris stepped out, her voice ringing with authority. "Fellow Krenim, hear me," she called out. "You have been deceived. Commander Lyra's actions threaten not just our leadership, but the very future of our species." Her words gave the soldiers pause. Seizing the moment, Solaris continued, laying out evidence of Lyra's deception and the potential benefits of collaboration with humans. Russell watched in awe as the Krenim leader's words swayed the conflicted soldiers, their weapons lowering one by one. The moment of triumph was short-lived. Commander Lyra herself burst onto the scene, her face contorted with rage. "Traitors!" she roared, raising her weapon. What happened next unfolded in a blur. Nixara, moving with startling speed, launched herself at Lyra. The two Krenim women grappled fiercely, Nixara's natural strength matching Lyra's military training. In a final, decisive move, Nixara pinned the commander to the ground, neutralizing the threat. The aftermath of the coup was a whirlwind of activity. Russell found himself thrust into the center of Krenim politics, his role in the rescue elevating him to a position of unexpected influence. Solaris, true to her word, granted him protected status and appointed him as an official ambassador between their species. The following weeks were a flurry of meetings, negotiations, and scientific breakthroughs. Russell divided his time between diplomatic duties and working alongside Dr. Zara on the collaborative project. The combination of human and Krenim knowledge yielded rapid progress, each day bringing them closer to a solution for the Krenim's reproductive crisis. Nyxara, once an outcast, now stood at the forefront of their research. Her unique fertility made her an invaluable participant, and Russell found himself drawn to her strength and resilience. As they worked together, a bond formed between them, forged in the crucible of shared danger and common purpose. Months of tireless effort culminated in a moment of triumph that sent shockwaves through Krenium society. In Dr. Zara's lab, surrounded by a team of breathless scientists, the first successful human-Krenium hybrid embryo came into being. The implications were staggering, a potential end to the existential threat that had loomed over the Krenium for generations. As news of the breakthrough spread, Russell found himself at the center of a society transformed. Krenium, who had once viewed him with suspicion, now treated him with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Yet with this success came new challenges. Debates raged about the long-term impact of human-Krenium hybrids on their culture and species identity. Russell navigated these complex issues with growing skill, his engineering mindset adapting to the intricacies of interspecies diplomacy. He worked tirelessly to address concerns while pushing the research forward, always aware of the monumental stakes involved. It was during this period of intense work and negotiation that a message from Earth finally reached Krena. The transmission, picked up by Krenium communication arrays, was brief but impactful. Russell's status was requested, with orders for his immediate return if possible. The message hit Russell like a physical blow. In the months since his arrival on Krena, he had built a life he never could have imagined. The thought of leaving behind the work, the friendships, and the sense of purpose he had found here filled him with a profound sense of loss. As he grappled with this dilemma, Nyxara approached him one evening, her expression a mix of joy and apprehension. "Russell," she said softly, "there's something you need to know." She took his hand and placed it gently on her abdomen. Russell's eyes widened as understanding dawned. We're... Nyxara nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "The first naturally conceived human-Krenium hybrid, our child." The revelation left Russell reeling. The choice before him, duty to Earth or commitment to his new life on Krena, suddenly became infinitely more complex. As he looked into Nyxara's eyes, he knew that his decision would have far-reaching consequences, not just for himself, but for the future of both human and Krenium societies. The binary suns of Krena set on this momentous day, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. Russell stood at the window of his quarters, watching the play of light on the city's gleaming spires. The weight of his impending decision pressed heavily upon him as the future of two worlds hung in the balance. Balance as the implications of Nyxara's revelation sank in. A child, his child, the first naturally conceived human-Krenium hybrid. The enormity of the situation threatened to overwhelm him, but Nyxara's steady gaze anchored him to the present. "We need to inform Solaris," Russell said, his voice barely above a whisper. Nyxara nodded, her silver hair catching the last rays of the setting suns. The news spread through Krenium society like wildfire. Within hours, Russell found himself summoned to an emergency meeting of the Krenium High Council. As he entered the grand chamber, he felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. Solaris stood at the center, her expression a mixture of concern and cautious optimism. "Russell Dixon," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the room, "you stand before us at a pivotal moment in our history. The child you have conceived with Nyxara represents both great promise and great uncertainty for our people." The council erupted into a cacophony of voices. Some counselors spoke of miracles and salvation, while others warned of dangers and cultural erosion. Russell listened intently, his mind racing to process the varied reactions. Dr. Zara stepped forward, her datapad projecting a holographic image of the developing embryo. "Preliminary scans indicate normal development," she reported. "However, we must emphasize the need for close monitoring throughout the pregnancy. This is uncharted territory for both our species." As the debate raged on, Russell found himself called upon to speak. He stood acutely aware of the gravity of the moment. "Honorable counselors," he began, his voice steady despite his nervousness, "I stand before you, not just as a human ambassador, but as someone who has lived among you, learned your ways, and come to call Krena home. This child, our child, represents the best of both our worlds. I urge you to see this not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth and understanding between our species." His words seemed to resonate with many, but not all. From the back of the chamber, a voice cut through the murmurs of agreement. "And what of our identity? Our genetic purity?" The speaker stepped forward, his eyes blazing with conviction. "I am Vexus, and I speak for those who fear the erosion of all that makes us Krena." Vexus's words ignited a new round of heated debate. Russell watched as the council chamber divided, with Vexus quickly gathering a following among the more conservative members. Solaris, sensing the growing tension, called for order. "This matter requires careful consideration. For now, our priority must be the safety and well-being of Nyxara and the child." She turned to Russell. "A security detail will be assigned to protect you both. You'll be moved to a secure facility within the research complex, where Dr. Zara can monitor the pregnancy closely." As Russell left the council chambers, he could hear the sound of protests erupting outside. Vexus's supporters had taken to the streets, their chants echoing through the city. The following days passed in a blur of medical examinations and security briefings. Russell and Nyxara found themselves ensconced in a sterile, high-tech facility, their every movement monitored for safety. The isolation wore on them both, the weight of their unique situation straining their relationship. "I never asked for this," Nyxara said one night, her hand resting protectively over her abdomen. "To be a symbol, a political pawn." Russell moved to comfort her, but before he could speak, an alarm blared through the facility. Dr. Zara burst into their room, her eyes wide with excitement and concern. "The embryo," she gasped. "It's developing at an accelerated rate. We need to run more tests immediately." As they rushed to the medical bay, Russell's mind reeled. The implications of this accelerated development were staggering, raising new questions and concerns about the nature of their child. Amidst the chaos of medical tests and political maneuvering, a new challenge emerged. Earth, having received no response to their initial transmission, had dispatched a rescue mission. The appearance of human ships in Krena's space sent shockwaves through an already tense populace. Russell found himself once again at the center of a diplomatic storm. In a private meeting with Solaris, he proposed a bold plan. "Let's invite a human delegation to Krena," he suggested. "Show them what we've accomplished here, the progress we've made. It could be the first step towards official relations between our worlds." Solaris considered his words carefully. "It's risky," she admitted, "but it may be our best option for avoiding conflict and gaining Earth's support." She fixed Russell with a penetrating gaze. "I'll agree to this, but I need you to prepare a comprehensive briefing for the delegates. They need to understand our biology, our culture, and the full circumstances of your integration into our society." As Russell threw himself into this new task, the situation on Krena grew increasingly tense. Vexus's faction, emboldened by the news of the accelerated embryo development, intensified their protests. Rumors spread of a superhuman hybrid child that could threaten Krena dominance. Russell, feeling responsible for the growing unrest, began a public campaign to counter the misinformation. He gave speeches, sharing his experiences and emphasizing the potential benefits of human-Krenium cooperation. His words began to sway public opinion, but Vexus's supporters remained a vocal and potentially dangerous opposition. As the days passed, Dr. Zara made a shocking announcement. Based on the accelerated development, she estimated that Nyxara could give birth within weeks rather than months. This news added a new urgency to the already fraught situation. Solaris responded by implementing a planet-wide security protocol and fast-tracking legislation to protect the rights of the hybrid child. These actions helped calm some fears, but also galvanize Vexus's supporters, who saw it as an overreach of government authority. With the human delegation's arrival imminent and the birth of his child approaching rapidly, Russell found himself at the eye of a storm that threatened to reshape two worlds. As he stood by Nyxara's side, watching the latest scans of their rapidly developing child, he couldn't help but wonder what the future held for them all. The facility's comm system crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. "Ambassador Dixon," came Solaris's voice, tense with urgency. "We've just received word. The human ships have entered orbit, It's time. Time? Solaris's words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Russell took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He turned to Nyxara, their eyes meeting in a silent exchange of support and apprehension. "I need to greet the delegation," he said softly. "Will you be all right?" Nyxara nodded, her hand resting protectively over her swollen abdomen. "Go! They need you." With a final squeeze of her hand, Russell left the medical wing, his footsteps echoing through the sterile corridors of the research facility. He made his way to the secure landing zone, his mind racing with the complexities of the situation he was about to face. The sleek human spacecraft touched down with a low hum, its hull gleaming under Krenema's binary suns. As the hatch opened, Russell straightened his posture, acutely aware of his role as the bridge between two worlds. Commander Jackson emerged first, his crisp uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes of the Krena. His eyes, sharp and assessing, locked onto Russell immediately. "Ambassador Dixon," Jackson said, extending his hand. "It's good to see a familiar face so far from home." Russell clasped the offered hand, noting the firm grip. "Commander Jackson, welcome to Krena. I wish the circumstances of your visit were less complicated." Jackson's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried a hint of steel. "Complicated is an understatement, Dixon. We've got a lot to discuss." As the rest of the human delegation disembarked, Russell launched into a rapid briefing. He outlined the delicate political situation, the breakthroughs in hybrid genetics, and the unprecedented nature of Nyxara's pregnancy. The delegation listened intently, their expressions a mix of fascination and concern. "And you're certain this child poses no threat?" Jackson asked, his tone measured. Before Russell could respond, a commotion erupted behind them. Dr. Zara's voice crackled over the facility's comm system, urgent and strained. "Russell, medical wing, now! It's Nyxara!" Heart pounding, Russell turned to Jackson. "I'm sorry, but I need to—" "We're coming with you," Jackson interrupted, gesturing to the delegation's medical officer. "If this situation is as critical as you've described, you might need our help." Russell nodded gratefully, and they rushed towards the medical wing. The corridors blurred as they ran, the facility's alarms blaring in response to Nyxara's distress. They burst into the medical bay to find chaos. Nyxara lay on an examination table, her face contorted in pain. Dr. Zara hovered over her, frantically analyzing readouts on a holographic display. "The fetus," Dr. Zara explained, her words tumbling out in a rush. "It's developing even faster than we anticipated. Nyxara's body can't keep up. We need to perform an emergency cesarean immediately." The human medical officer stepped forward, her eyes scanning the alien equipment. "I can assist. Our techniques might be compatible." Dr. Zara nodded, grateful for the help. As they prepared for the procedure, Russell moved to Nyxara's side, taking her hand in his. "I'm here," he whispered. "You're going to be okay, both of you." Suddenly, the facility shook with a violent tremor. Alarms blared with renewed urgency. "We're under attack!" Solaris's voice rang out over the comm system. "Vexus and his followers have breached the outer defenses." Commander Jackson's posture shifted instantly, military training taking over. "Dixon, we need to secure this wing. Your people need you out there." Russell felt torn, his gaze shifting between Nyxara and the door. She squeezed his hand weakly. "Go," she managed through gritted teeth. "Protect our child." With a heavy heart, Russell joined Jackson in organizing the defense. They directed security personnel, barricaded entrances, and coordinated with Solaris's forces. The sounds of battle echoed through the facility, energy weapons discharging, structures crumbling, shouts of anger and pain. As they worked, Russell couldn't help but marvel at the surreal nature of the situation. Here he was, fighting alongside humans to protect a Krena facility, all while his hybrid child was being born amidst the chaos. "We've got hostiles approaching the East Corridor," Jackson reported, his voice calm despite the circumstances. "If we can funnel them into the narrow passage, we'll have the advantage." Russell relayed the strategy to the Krena security forces. The two species, so recently strangers, now moved in concert, their shared purpose overcoming any lingering mistrust. The battle raged on, Vexus's followers pushing deeper into the facility with each passing minute. Russell split his attention between coordinating the defense and anxiously awaiting news from the medical bay. Just as Vexus's forces reached the final barrier before the medical wing, a new sound cut through the chaos, the unmistakable cry of a newborn child. The fighting seemed to pause for a heartbeat, the combatants on both sides processing the significance of that sound. Seizing the moment, Russell accessed the facility's communication system. His voice, steady and clear, echoed through every corridor and chamber. People of Krena, humans of Earth, I speak to you now, not as an ambassador, not as a scientist, but as a father. In this moment, amidst conflict and fear, a new life has entered our world. A child of two species, a bridge between our peoples. He paused, letting his words sink in. This child represents not the end of Krena identity, but a new beginning for both our species. She is proof that our differences can be overcome, that together we can achieve the impossible. As Russell spoke, he could see the effect of his words. Weapons lowered, expressions softened. Even Vexus's most ardent supporters seemed to waver. I ask you now to lay down your arms. Let us meet this new future not with fear, but with hope. Let us work together to build a world worthy of the child who has just entered it. A profound silence fell over the facility as Russell's words faded. Then slowly, weapons began to clatter to the ground. The tension in the air dissipated, replaced by a sense of wonder and possibility. As the fighting ceased, Russell rushed back to the medical bay, Commander Jackson at his side. They entered to find Dr. Zara and the human medical officer standing over an incubator, their faces a mix of exhaustion and awe. And there, tiny and perfect, lay Russell's daughter. Her skin was a soft lilac, her eyes, when they fluttered open, a striking blue. Human and Krena features blended seamlessly, creating something entirely new and beautiful. Nixara, still recuperating, reached out a weak hand. She's perfect, she whispered. Russell gently lifted the child, marveling at her warmth, her weight, the tangible proof of two worlds coming together. As he held her, he knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, medical, political, societal. But in this moment, cradling his daughter while humans and Krena stood side by side, Russell felt a profound sense of hope for the future. Commander Jackson cleared his throat, his usual military bearing softened by the scene before him. Congratulations, Dixon, he said quietly. I think we have a lot to discuss about the future of Earth-Krena relations. Russell nodded, his eyes still fixed on his daughter's face. Yes, he agreed, we certainly do. Russell cradled his newborn daughter, marveling at the perfect blend of human and Krena features. As he gazed into her striking blue eyes, he knew their journey was just beginning. In the months that followed, the research facility became a whirlwind of activity. Lyra's growth rate astounded everyone, her development leaping forward at an unprecedented pace. By 6 months, she was already walking, talking, and demonstrating problem-solving skills far beyond her years. It's remarkable, Dr. Zara said, reviewing Lyra's latest scans. Her cognitive functions are equivalent to a 3-year-old Krena child. We've never seen anything like this. Russell and Nixara exchanged glances, a mix of pride and concern evident in their expressions. Is she healthy? Nixara asked, her hand resting protectively on Lyra's shoulder. Dr. Zara nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. Incredibly so. Her hybrid physiology grants her enhanced strength and an adaptive immune system that's leagues beyond anything we've encountered. However, she added, her tone growing serious, we need to closely monitor her nutrition. Her accelerated metabolism requires a delicate balance of human and Krena nutrients. As Lyra grew, so did the challenges of raising her. Russell found himself constantly adapting, struggling to keep up with his daughter's insatiable curiosity and boundless energy. One morning, he awoke to find Lyra's bed empty. Panic gripped him until he heard a giggle from the ceiling. He looked up to see Lyra clinging to the light fixture, her lilac skin shimmering in the early morning light. Lyra, he exclaimed, a mix of relief and exasperation in his voice. How did you get up there? She grinned, showing off her perfect blend of human and Krena teeth. I climbed, Daddy. It was easy. As Russell coaxed his daughter down, he realized they needed a new approach to her education and care. Working with Dr. Zara and a team of human and Krena experts, they developed a specialized curriculum that could match Lyra's advanced abilities while ensuring proper socialization. Meanwhile, the human presence on Krena continued to grow. Commander Jackson, now serving as Earth's ambassador, worked tirelessly alongside Russell to strengthen diplomatic ties. The establishment of a permanent Earth embassy brought new opportunities and challenges. One evening, as Russell and Jackson shared a meal in the embassy's dining hall, a commotion erupted outside. They rushed to the window to see a group of humans and Krena engaged in a heated argument. "You can't just walk into our sacred gardens," a Krena elder shouted, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "We didn't know it was sacred," a human woman retorted. "There were no signs." Jackson sighed, rubbing his temples. "Cultural misunderstandings like this are becoming more frequent. We need to do better." Russell nodded, an idea forming. "What if we use Lyra as a bridge? She embodies both cultures. Maybe she can help us find common ground." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Solaris. "Russell, Jackson, we have a situation. A group of human extremists has infiltrated Krena. They're targeting you and Lyra." Russell's blood ran cold. He rushed back to the research facility, his mind racing with possibilities. As he approached Lyra's room, he heard a soft whisper. "Daddy, there are bad people coming. I can smell them." He froze, amazed once again by his daughter's enhanced senses. "Lyra, we need to move quietly. Can you do that?" She nodded, her eyes wide but unafraid. As they made their way through the facility, Russell could hear the sounds of struggle echoing through the corridors. Nyxara appeared, her warrior training evident in her tense posture. "The extremists have breached the outer defenses," she whispered. "We need to get Lyra to safety." Suddenly, the lights flickered and died. In the darkness, Russell felt a small hand slip into his. "This way, Daddy," Lyra whispered. "I can see a safe path." Trusting his daughter's enhanced senses, Russell followed her lead. They navigated through darkened corridors, avoiding the sounds of conflict. At one point, they reached a sealed security door. "I can't override it," Russell muttered, frustration evident in his voice. Lyra tugged at his sleeve. "I can fit through the vent," she said, pointing to a small opening near the floor. "I can open it from the other side." Russell hesitated, torn between pride in his daughter's resourcefulness and fear for her safety. Nyxara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let her try. She's more capable than we often realize." With a nod, Russell helped Lyra into the vent. Long moments passed as they waited in tense silence. Then, with a soft hiss, the door slid open, revealing Lyra's triumphant smile. As they continued their escape, they encountered a group of extremists led by a stern-faced man Russell recognized as Colonel Hartman, a former Earth military officer. The colonel's eyes widened at the sight of Lyra. "That's the abomination," he growled. "Seize them!" What followed was a chaotic battle. Nyxara engaged the extremists with fluid grace, her Krena strength giving her the upper hand. Russell used his knowledge of the facility to activate hidden security measures, disorienting their attackers. Throughout it all, Lyra remained calm, her enhanced problem-solving skills allowing her to guide her parents to safety. As they reached the central atrium, they found themselves cornered by Hartman and his remaining forces. "You don't understand what you're doing," Russell pleaded. "Lyra isn't a threat. She's the future, a bridge between our species." Hartman's face contorted with disgust. "She's the end of humanity as we know it. Can't you see that?" As tensions reached a breaking point, Lyra stepped forward. She raised her small hands, palms out, and began to emit a soft, melodic hum. To Russell's amazement, he felt a wave of calm wash over him. He glanced at Nyxara, who nodded in shared wonder. The extremists lowered their weapons, confusion evident on their faces. Hartman blinked rapidly, shaking his head as if to clear it. What is this?" he mumbled. "She's communicating," Nyxara whispered, "using both human emotional cues and Krena pheromones. I've never seen anything like it." In that moment of confusion, Commander Jackson arrived with a joint human-Krenum security team. They quickly disarmed and apprehended the extremists, with Hartman offering no resistance, still dazed by Lyra's unique ability. As the crisis subsided, Russell pulled Lyra into a tight embrace. "You were so brave," he murmured. She looked up at him, her blue eyes wise beyond her years. "I just did what felt right, Daddy. We're all the same inside, aren't we?" Russell nodded, a lump forming in his throat. He looked at Nyxara, then at the mixed group of humans and Krenum around them. In that moment, he saw the potential for a truly integrated future, one where the boundaries between species blurred, creating something entirely new and wonderful. As they made their way back to their quarters, Russell knew that challenges lay ahead. Lyra's existence would continue to push the boundaries of both human and Krenum society. But as he watched his daughter walk hand in hand with Nyxara, chatting animatedly about her adventure, he felt a surge of hope. The path forward would not be easy, but with Lyra as a living bridge between two worlds, Russell believed that true harmony between humans and Krenum was not just possible. It was inevitable. Inevitable. They had taken the first steps towards a future where the lines between human and Krenum blurred, creating something entirely new and beautiful. As the years passed, Lyra's growth continued to astound everyone around her. By her 5th birthday, she had the physical appearance and cognitive abilities of a young adult. Her lilac skin glowed with vitality, and her striking blue eyes held a wisdom far beyond her years. One evening, as the family sat together in their quarters, Lyra broached a subject that had been on her mind for some time. "Mom, Dad, I've been thinking," she began, her voice a melodious blend of human and Krenum tones. "I want to do more to help our people understand each other." Russell and Nyxara exchanged glances, a mix of pride and concern in their eyes. "What did you have in mind, sweetheart?" Russell asked. Lyra's eyes lit up with excitement. "A goodwill tour of Earth and Krenuma. I can show both species the benefits of our cooperation, address their concerns about hybrids like me. I think I can make a difference." Nyxara reached out, gently stroking her daughter's cheek. "It won't be easy. There are still those who fear what you represent." "I know," Lyra nodded, her expression determined. "But that's exactly why I need to do this." After much discussion and careful planning, Lyra's tour began on Earth. The moment she stepped off the spacecraft, a media frenzy erupted. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and curious onlookers craned their necks for a glimpse of the hybrid prodigy. Lyra handled it all with grace, effortlessly switching between English and the complex clicks and whistles of Krenum language. At a press conference in New York, she demonstrated her unique abilities, lifting weights that would challenge even the strongest human athletes, then solving complex mathematical equations in seconds. "I am not a threat," she said, her voice carrying across the hushed auditorium. "I am a bridge between two incredible species, proof that our differences can be our greatest strength." Her words, broadcast across the globe, began to shift public opinion. Skeptics who had once feared the implications of human Krenum hybrids found themselves won over by Lyra's intelligence, charm, and obvious compassion for both her parent species. Back on Krenuma, Lyra's impact was equally profound. She addressed the High Council, her words translated for those Krenum who hadn't yet mastered human languages. "Esteemed leaders," she began, her tentacles moving in the formal gestures of respect. "I stand before you as a daughter of two worlds. In my veins flows the blood of Krenuma and Earth. In my mind, the knowledge of both our great civilizations resides. And in my heart, I carry a vision of a future where we stand united." As she spoke, Lyra unveiled her most ambitious proposal yet, a plan to terraform a nearby, uninhabited planet, creating a new world where humans and Krenum could build a truly integrated society. The project, dubbed Harmony, quickly gained traction. Volunteers from both species flocked to join the effort, eager to be part of this historic undertaking. Russell and Nyxara found themselves at the forefront of the initiative, their years of experience in cross-species collaboration proving invaluable. As the terraforming progressed, more humans and Krenum chose to form families together. Russell and Nyxara became de facto advisors to these new couples, sharing their experiences and helping them navigate the unique challenges of interspecies relationships. Years passed and harmony flourished. The once barren planet transformed into a lush world of purple oceans and emerald forests, dotted with cities that blended human and Krenim architecture into something entirely new. On Lyra's 30th birthday, though she appeared much older due to her accelerated growth, she was elected as one of Harmony's first government leaders. Russell and Nexara watched with pride as their daughter took her oath of office, her words broadcast across 3 worlds. "Today, we stand at the dawn of a new era," Lyra declared, her voice strong and clear. "An era where the boundaries between species fade, where diversity is our greatest asset, and where the spirit of cooperation guides us to the stars." As she spoke, Russell felt Nexara's hand slip into his. He turned to his wife, marveling at how the years had only made her more beautiful to him. Her skin, once in vibrant purple, had softened to a gentle lavender with age. The tentacles framing her face moved gently in the warm breeze of their new home. "Did you ever imagine this?" Nexara whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "When you crash-landed on Krenema all those years ago?" Russell shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. "Never in my wildest dreams," he replied, squeezing her hand. "But I wouldn't change a thing." As the ceremony concluded, Russell and Nexara made their way through the crowd, accepting congratulations from humans, Krenium, and the growing number of hybrids. They had long since retired from active duty, choosing to settle in a quiet corner of Harmony where they could watch their grandchildren grow. That evening, as twin suns set on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the extended family gathered for a celebration. Human and Krenim dishes mingled on the table, a feast that represented the blending of 2 worlds. Russell looked around at the faces of his loved ones, Nexara, Lyra, their grandchildren, and friends both human and Krenim. He thought back to that fateful day when his ship had crashed on an alien world, how terrified and alone he had felt. Now, surrounded by family and the fruits of interstellar cooperation, he felt a profound sense of peace. As night fell and the first stars began to twinkle in the sky, Russell raised his glass in a toast. "To Harmony," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and to the incredible journey that brought us here." The glasses clinked, a chorus of human and Krenim voices echoing the sentiment. As conversations resumed and laughter filled the air, Russell pulled Nexara close, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. Their story, once a tale of survival and adaptation, had become an epic of interstellar unity, and as they stood together under the stars of their new home, Russell and Nexara knew that their journey, and the journey of their 2 species, was just getting started. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities, challenges, and the promise of even greater harmony to come.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.